everybody, and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel. And this is the ratings show after the brilliant 2-0 win in the Manchester derby. Fantastic performance yesterday at the Etihad. Really unexpected, but somehow Ole does seem to pull it out in these big games so often. I mean, we've had a pretty poor run of it. Not a bad result, 0-0 at Chelsea last week. Then a bit of a disaster against Palace. A bit of a drab affair just before the Chelsea game against Real Sociedad. So it's not been great just recently. And then suddenly you go there, you're expecting a really tough game, and they seem to. Obviously, they had a couple of half-decent chances, City, but they seem to manage the game quite comfortably. Obviously, the early goal, penalty in the first minute, well played by Anthony Martial and well finished by Bruno. But that gives you really something to get your teeth into and hang on to. And that, I'm not saying they wouldn't have played the same had it still been 0-0, but you really do get a bit of a lift from that early goal. And for long periods, really, they hardly looked in danger as much of the ball as City had. They seem to defend quite comfortably. So I've got the ratings from the Manchester Evening News, which I'm going to have a look through now and say what I thought. But just before I do actually look through the ratings, how do you rate a performance like that? How do you rate each individual player? When you go to a game, any game where you're playing a side that's in such form at the moment, City seems to be the best team around, the favourites to win everything, possibly even the Champions League. Maybe a lot of people would say it's between them and Bayern for the Champions League. So certainly in this country, they're easily the best team around. So when you go to a game like that, so much of your performance is based on working hard, getting behind the ball, getting your team shape right, knowing when to go forward, when not to go forward, and above all else, getting back behind the ball as soon as you do lose it. So much of your game is built on that, and that's so important to your tactics on the day that that everybody's got to do that. So if everybody's got to do that, how do you rate? They've stuck to the guns. They've won 2-0. They've worked so hard. The team shape's been superb throughout. You could make an argument everybody deserves an 8 or even a 9 out of 10. Well, a 9 out of 10 is outstanding. If you're going to pick somebody to be outstanding, everybody else, you could easily argue everybody stuck to the guns and did very well. But obviously, that wouldn't be as much fun, would it, as deciding, well, such a player played really well because he did well when he had the ball. And it's more about how well you play in games like that without the ball. And they all played well without the ball. Everybody, like I say, everybody stuck to the task and did the job that was asked of them. So as I'm going through this, really, what I am like, everybody worked hard. Everybody stuck to the guns, played in the right team shape, got into position all the time. So what I'm really going to talk about is what they did. I'm marking them myself on what they did when they actually got hold of the ball and how good they were at keeping hold of the ball, passing the ball, and obviously shooting or crossing or whatever, depending what position you're in. That I put a tweet out a little bit tongue in cheek about Nemanja Matic. I said something along the lines of that. I prefer Matic to Fred. I think he's a better player than Fred. I would always pick Matic ahead of Fred. I prefer bigger, stronger players in midfield anyway. And there's no denying that he's bigger and stronger. But I also believe he's calmer on the ball. I believe he's a better passer of the ball, and I believe that playing against most teams, especially teams who are defending deep against us, I think Matic is a better player to have in your team. He's the one who puts better balls, I believe, into the forwards' feet around the edge of the box. He also puts better passes. He finds better angles on his passes out to the fullback. He's generally leftish, so it'd generally be to Shaw to get Shaw into good positions. So I would always play Nemanja Matic. But I tweeted this morning. In this game where we're trying to play on the break and where it's all about working hard and getting behind the ball and winning the ball back and trying to break quickly, would it have been a benefit to us actually looking after the ball more and actually having more of the play? If you want to become a team like City and like Liverpool have been for the last couple of seasons, where you're beating everyone before you at times, but certainly all the more ordinary teams outside the big six, you've got to try and win all of those games. you obviously want to get hold of the ball. You obviously want to pass it better. You want to have more possession. You want to give yourselves more chance of breaking these teams down. But the way United are setting up against Manchester City, would it actually be a positive if we had a little bit more of the possession? It made me think. I thought to myself, I wondered if we would be any better by having more of the possession. Because obviously, the more possession City have in that game, the more chance we've got of breaking on them and having a little bit of space to break into. So I thought it was quite an interesting little thing to think of. You know, if we was to play the game again tomorrow, I would pick Matic. I love Matic. I think Matic is a great player. I think he's a far better player. But just maybe, there's an argument that maybe we don't want to quite look after the ball as well as we could in that particular game and in games like that. Maybe we want them to have it a little bit more. Maybe you're never ever going to say to your players, look, when you get it, now and again, just give it back to them deliberately. You're never going to say that. But if you've got some players who are not quite, it's not just about the passing. There's no point looking at the passing stats, by the way. But sometimes you don't look after it well enough, and it's a bit, you get caught in possession, or you're not quick enough to get it under control, things like that. Which Matic is good at those sort of things. So just maybe, you're better off not looking after it quite so well if you do want to play on the break. Just an interesting thing that I thought of. So anyway, this is going to generally be about what you did with the ball. As I say, everybody did the job without the ball. Starting with the keeper, obviously it's different for him. Being, I was about to say, what can he do with the ball? But he did throw the ball out to Luke Shaw that led to a goal, didn't he? And the Evening News have said a solid save from Zinchenko at 1-0, and his throw out to Luke Shaw set the wheels in motion for United's second, and they've given him an 8. I usually give a keeper a 7 unless he makes some great saves, but I think I will stick with that and say an 8 is fine for Dean Henderson in that game. He seems to give the defenders a lot more, I won't say a lot more confidence. David De Gea has had great games for us where he's given the defenders confidence, but there's certainly no problem with Dean Henderson in the goal, and he seemed to ooze confidence, and I think that spreads to his defenders as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, they've said, did not dominate Raheem Sterling as much as he did last season in the first half, but as the game developed, Sterling looked less likely to get past Wan-Bissaka, and they've given him an 8. I wouldn't disagree with that. I'll go with an 8 for Wan-Bissaka. An 8 is very good, by the way, so they've both got 8s so far. Victor Lindelof has a habit of reserving his best performances against the elite, and that was the case again. Read things impeccably well. 8 they've given him, and again I'll agree with that. An 8 for Victor Lindelof. He played very well. Excuse me. Harry Maguire had his best half in months. City's lack of a quality number 9 showed with Maguire on the pitch. One of his best performances for United, they've said. Well, he's played. I put another tweet that I put out this morning is that in 4 league games against City, they've only scored 1 goal against us. So 1 goal in 4, and that was in the first game last season. So in the last 3 league games against City, we've kept clean sheets. So Harry Maguire seems to always have a good game, and they've said one of his best performances for United. Maybe that's just because it's so fresh in the mind, but I do think he played well, and I will agree with the 8. Luke Shaw could have made it 2-0 inside 5 minutes, but shot straight at Edison. Made amends with a wonderful solo goal early in the second half. Not quite, it sort of was a solo goal, but he had to give it to Rashford and get it back off him, so it doesn't qualify as a solo goal really, but it was a brilliant goal. And for that goal, and also because I think he was just slightly the pick of the back 4. I don't often give a 9 out. A 9 is outstanding. And for Luke Shaw, I said this on the show. This morning that I thought it might be all 8s and a 9, and I've rewatched the game now, and I've read it exactly. I'd read it at the time exactly as I saw it when I rewatched it. Luke Shaw hardly put a foot wrong, and for getting that goal, I think he just deserves just to be slightly ahead of the other defenders, and so he's got a 9 out of 10. Luke Shaw, Scott McTominay. I don't see this one like they see it. Pulled up early on, struggled to get any rhythm. His passing was poor, and McTominay did not initially get close enough to sit his midfield players. More solid after the pause. I don't see that at all. I thought McTominay had a fine game. Obviously, a couple of passes went astray, but his passing was equally as good as any of United's players. Well, not equally as good. It was better. It was better than. I know I say don't just look at the stats, but the stats mean something if there's a big gap. And I've seen the passing stats. I think it was like 63% for Fred and something like 75% for McTominay. Quite a difference. And I've also seen McTominay's passing, the actual passes that do make it to the target. They're crisper, they're sharper, they've got better weight on them. McTominay's passing, obviously you give a few away, but the actual passes that make the target are better passes not every time, but in general. They're better passes, and I thought McTominay played well. And he's like I always say, he's a strong lad. I think he's important to that midfield in games like that. And he's intercepting a lot of balls, winning a lot of balls. And I thought he played very well, Scott McTominay, and very well is an 8 out of 10 in my book. So they've given him a 6, and I'm putting him up there with the rest of with the defenders, apart from Luke Shaw, and Scott McTominay gets an 8 in my book. For Fred, the Evening News have said full of beans, but that was about it. Sloppy with the ball and did not exactly deny Kevin De Bruyne or Ilkay Gundogan space. More disciplined after the pause. I think it might just be a little bit harsh. He did give it away a bit carelessly a couple of times, and he did get caught in possession. He is a bit sloppy in possession, Fred. It's a general thing with him. But I just think in this game, the hard work in the midfield, which was so vital, I just think that he deserves a little bit more credit than that, and a 6 is decent. And I think I've got to say that I thought he played quite well, really. So I'm going to go a 7 for Fred. Although I have actually said I'm going to mark him on what he did with the ball. He was a little bit poor in possession, but I still think it's a bit harsh to only give him a 6 for the work that he put in. Bruno, they've given a 7 to. They've add the bottle to convert his 18th penalty for the club, despite the heckling from the City physio inside the first 2 minutes. I didn't hear the City physio. I'd like to see that, or see it, I should say. And they've given Bruno a 7. I would stick with that, a 7 as well. As ever, I always say this, works his socks off every time he goes on the field, Bruno. You cannot knock him for that. That's a fact. But again, I would say, again, a little bit sloppy in possession, but not. It wasn't so many Hollywood balls, but just sometimes slightly the wrong decision, and just maybe should have played it not more simply. I can remember one instance, for example, where we got a breakaway, and it was in the first half, and Rashford's to his left, and Martial's running through. Martial's further forward, and he plays the more forward pass, and a lot of people might think that's the better pass, but because Martial's running through like an inside left channel, the pass goes towards the corner flag, and he has to chase it towards the corner flag, and there's no harm done. Martial does beat his man to it, keeps it in, turns back, and wins the throw-in. So we get a throw-in up there in their corner flag. Some people think it's fantastic that you're always looking for the really positive pass. It isn't necessarily the case in football. In that particular instance, for example, Rashford was in a lot more space than Martial, and he was to Bruno's left, and Martial's running forward, and Martial's ahead of the ball. And the ball to Rashford's an easier ball to play. Rashford's got a lot of space and can move onto it. If you just play that simple ball, Rashford can move the ball, move forward with the ball. Bruno can be moving forward, and Martial can make his way into the box. So sometimes even the passes that come off, that's not the only time I saw similar things to that. So it just needs. I prefer it if he just calms down a little bit and just gives the easy passes even more often than he's doing. And I think that's something that's inbuilt into somebody's game, really. And I just think somebody who could I think of, someone who's played for us in the past. I don't think Scholesy, for example, at his best, would always be looking to play that ball for somebody to chase towards the flag. If you've got somebody in oceans of space to your right or your left, just give it to them. You can build the play. You can still attack quickly, but you're doing it with a little bit more patience and a little bit more forethought, if you like. And I think Bruno can sharpen up on that side of it, that part of his game. But they've given him a 7, and I won't disagree with it, so I would go a 7. This bit I don't agree with one little bit. Dan James, they've given him a 5. Barely had a kick and was selected more for his work off the ball than on it. Gave United an outlet, but decision-making suspects. I'm going to circle all that, what they've said. Every single bit of it, virtually every bit of it, is complete rubbish. Barely had a kick, that's rubbish. I saw numerous good interceptions and numerous good passes. Whoever writes this, he probably doesn't realise what a good pass is. Numerous times nicking the ball, he fired the ball into Martial's feet. Martial won a free kick. I saw him win the ball in the centre circle, fire another pass into Martial's feet, and Martial turned and went at the defenders. I saw him late on in the game when he switched to the left. I saw him win the ball back and race forward into their half, and then cut across the field and pass it to Rashford. I know Rashford had gone off by it. Passed it to Greenwood. A lot of you will probably remember the incident where Greenwood tried a long ball then, and the ball goes out by the corner flag. Just interestingly, what does he give Greenwood? See, he gives offered energy. He gives Mason Greenwood a 6 and gives Dan James a 5. I promise you faithfully, that's an absolute disgrace. No disrespect to Mason. Mason did fine, but he's on the park for 20 minutes. He's on the park for 20 minutes. And there's one incident of play that you can see that just puts the whole thing in perspective. This one that I'm talking about. Dan James wins the ball in his own left back spot. He realises there's space to attack. He races into their half. A defender comes towards him. He goes inside him, but he's forced across the field. When he's forced across the field, he lifts his head up. He's not stupid like a lot of people seem to think he is, and he sees Mason in space. He gives it to Mason, and then he makes an angled run to behind the left back. So he's now gone from our left back position to their left back position across the field. He's carried the ball most of that way. He's passed it. He's made a run behind the left back, hoping for Mason to put it behind the left back, and Mason plays a cross-field pass that goes out for a goal kick. Now then, Mason was only on the park, as I say, 20 minutes. And Mason gets a 6 and Dan James gets a 5 and gets called for barely having a kick and selected more for his work off the ball. That bit might have a bit of credence to it, but he was perfectly fine on the ball. Even this bit I don't like. Gave United an outlet. 2 bits here in one sentence that are just completely wrong. Gave United an outlet. That gives you the impression that you've got somebody that you can knock balls to, who can get away or who can get it under them. Anthony Martial was the outlet. You're giving it Martial. He's getting it under and allowing players to get forward and winning the occasional free kick. Dan James didn't really give United an outlet. He was setting his position, and we played football by knocking the ball to Martial or even playing in the midfield and trying to get forward. It wasn't a case of just knocking it beyond their fullback and getting Dan James to chase it. That was not happening. It really wasn't. So gave United an outlet. I don't agree with it. And decision-making suspects, his decision-making was absolutely spot on, and I defy anybody to tell me that I'm wrong. His decision-making was spot on. What this writer is saying, they're all generalisations. It's complete rubbish. And Dan James played very well. I'm not going to say an 8 like some of the players, but certainly at least as well as Fred, and certainly at least as well as Bruno. In fact, probably slightly better. But I'll give him a 7, the same as Fred and Bruno. And then Marcus, I've got to say this, although he gets that one badly wrong, I don't know if the penny's dropping with some people about Marcus, because Marcus has not been playing that well, and normally he can play not well and get a man of the match award or get an 8 out of 10 or something. But they've given Marcus a 5, which I think again is a little bit harsh. I'm going to give him a 6 straight away. But I do see where he's coming from. Ran down blind alleys constantly and got it wrong more often than he got it right. Somehow assisted Shaw. That somehow assisted Shaw, I know what he means. Shaw give him the ball, and he did give it back to Shaw, but it was straight at Shaw rather than just a touch in front of him. But you can't really knock him for it in a tight penalty area. But Shaw still had loads. Of work to do. I know Marcus gets an assist for it, but he didn't really. I don't want to sound too harsh on him here, but he didn't really set a chance or pass such. He passed it to Luke Shaw with players around him, and it was a good pass to Luke Shaw, and it had to be straight at him. The box is too crowded really to put it in front of him. He probably wouldn't have got the ball or got a shot in if it was in front of him. But by passing the ball to him, that gave Shaw the chance to get it out of his feet, but he had to shift it to his left and then shoot. So probably, well, it's a deserved assist, but most of the work is down to Luke Shaw. With the run, the pass to Rashford, and then even then when he gets it back off Rashford, he's involved twice, and both of his bits of play are the hard bits, if you like, almost as if he deserves the assist himself, so to speak. So I know what he means by somehow assisted Shaw, but it's a little bit harsh. But another poor performance, and they've given him a 5. I think that's a little bit harsh on this occasion. I do agree he was one of the poorer performers, and I've not given anybody lower than 7 at the minute. But I will up Marcus from a 5 to a 6. So just a little, a bit better than what they're saying. A 6 is a decent or average game, and I think Marcus was at least decent or average. And then Martial. In the evening news, they absolutely always slate Anthony Martial, so I couldn't wait to read what they said. Made an immediate impact to win the penalty inside a minute, but squandered an easy chance to make it 3-0, but still give him a 7. So that's good by evening news standards. A 7 for Anthony Martial. I'm going to give Anthony Martial an 8, which is going to leave me with an 8. Because how many players have got an 8? 3 of the defenders, Wan-Bissaka, Victor Lindelof, Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay in midfield, and Anthony Martial. 5 players have got an 8. Luke Shaw's got a 9. And I think that's dead fair, I really do. A 7 for Fred, a 7 for Bruno, a 7 for Dan James, and a 6 for Marcus. And I really do think that's fair and pretty close. I've studied it again. This guy probably watches it once. I half wondered if he even watches it properly when he watches it, by the way. He might miss, the way he said, what did he say about Dan James? Barely had a kick. He must have been having a quick drink of his tea or something every time Dan got it, because when he did get it, he made good decisions and passed it well. But Anthony Martial, an 8 out of 10. That's the last one because nobody got half a game as a sub. They've given Mason a 6. They've given Nemanja Matic a 6. Nemanja Matic, look, I'm a massive, massive fan of Nemanja Matic, but come on. Matic literally came on with about 3 minutes to go, and he gets a 6, and Dan James gets a 5. You're absolutely taking a mickey. So that's that. The player in focus show. I said I would be doing it between the defenders. I said on the show the other night that I will be putting up the 4 defenders no matter how it goes, and it's fantastic now that we've kept a clean sheet. It's proper interesting. So in the player in focus, you can vote on it on Rick the Red UK on Twitter, and the 4 players that will be up there will be Wan-Bissaka, Victor Lindelof, Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw. I bet Luke Shaw wins it. I'm not trying to sway it, I'm really not. I just bet he does. He often seems to be the one who people think have had the better game, I think, that tends to get the votes. But let's see. So I'll be putting those 4 players up on Rick the Red UK on Twitter. You can vote on that Twitter poll to see who will be the player in focus. And tomorrow night I'll be doing the player in focus with clips of the game going up on Twitter. If you've enjoyed that show, please tell all your friends. Please subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anybody. Keep stum.